Cool. So once you have your character with all the shapes and they've all been modulated, okay, then we can start actually constructing this face rig. Okay. The benefits of this face rig is that, I mean, you could, and it's a method that people used for a long time, I think, you could potentially go and animate this whole thing, sliding controls here and animating these values, okay? However, it's not very effective and it's not very intuitive and it's like it's a very technical way of doing it. Whereas grabbing the brow and just moving it on the character is a lot easier. Also, a lot of these shapes were actually linked to more than one shape to one control, okay? So over here where we have the corner of the mouth, where we're linking there 4 different shapes to be able to do that, is a far better way to animate than literally going and sliding individual sliders. Okay, so when we begin, okay, what we need to do is we need to create the armature itself and then start linking the controls to the shapes themselves using drivers. Okay, so I'm only going to do a couple so that you can just see the process. Okay. And so there's more than one. I'm going to do the corner of the mouth because there are four shapes linked to that. I also want to do a part of the eyelid because there we have more than one shape linked to one particular parameter. And well, let's see how it goes. Okay. So first of all, you need a new armature, okay? And this you can make entirely on its own until it's finished, and then you merge it with your character's body rig, okay? In which case you join them, press Ctrl J, you parent it to your head bone, and it shouldn't have any glaring issues. So the first thing that I do is I go and make new armature single bone, okay? That bone in edit mode, okay? Also, if we switch this to a view that we can see it, I tend to place more or less around the head, somewhere over there. Okay, and that would be the root control of our entire rig. If you click the bone button over there, you can rename this. So I'd call this face rig root. Okay, so everything is then taken from there. Okay, so the lucky thing about this is that it's not really, or it doesn't have to be, like a very technical, like this process is pretty straightforward. We're literally placing a control where we want it, linking the driver to that, and then limiting the position that it can move so that it doesn't move all over the place. Okay, so from there, not look dev, just, oh, that's fine. Okay, what I tend to do is also make sure that you work with your wireframe on so that you can place these things where you need them. Okay, so I would place my 3D cursor somewhere and create another bone. So in edit mode of the armature, okay, they've made these controls weird. Okay, so in edit mode of the armature, I'll also then set my pivot point to the 3D cursor so that if I scale this bone down, there we go, it scales down more or less where I placed it. Okay, so I tend to make them quite small just to keep it neat and tidy. If they're very big, they intersect each other and it's a little bit more difficult to see what's going on. Okay, so over there, and I want this control to affect this edge loop. Okay, now bear in mind that the tail of the bone, that bottom sphere over there, that is where its center is, and that is where the controller, the actual object that we link to it, will appear. Okay, just by default. However, again, this is a fairly foolproof way of working, so it's a very robust way. It doesn't really break too easily, and it's really just, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, so that then I would then call my brow dot, brow middle dot left. Okay. Also, when we do this, we only do the one side. Okay, so you pull these controls and then you mirror that to make the other side, which I'll show you as well. So we don't have to go and make both sides. And that's why if we have a dot left on the at the end of it as a suffix, then I can show you whatever is, now it's a poor example because there's only one bone, but if there was like 20 of them, all at dot lefts, you could literally go and say armature symmetrize, and it would make a dot right. Okay, same thing as the mirroring of weight groups. Okay, so that would be step one. Okay, as I said, we're going to do a couple, so let's just also make one for the eyes, so we can link those, or both of those, in edit mode, Shift A, pivot point to there. Okay, you can go and make new bones, like literally by pressing Shift A each time. However, I would do that, and then I'd just duplicate those for the others. Okay, so you can do that, which makes it a bit quicker, and then they're all the same size, so your controls are the same size as well. And then the corner of the mouth. And I'm going to move it a little bit away from the corner of the mouth because obviously it shouldn't be inside the geometry. So somewhere over there would be fine. Okay. So I'm not going to do those. So just to keep it neat and tidy, we'll do those three. Okay. So those are my actual controls. Okay. In pose mode, they look the same. And ideally, like I have over here, we want it to be a little prettier and a little neater and easier to identify which controls which. Particularly, for instance, over here we have a whole bunch of them which all do different things. We don't want to just have a bunch of octahedral bones. Okay, so we tend to link them to, or link their display to a different object. Okay, and we'll do that. I'll just do it quickly. This object can be anything. For instance, if I were to make a monkey, that scale would have done nothing to it, just by the way, it's the scale in edit mode. In pose mode of the rig, go to the bone tab and go to viewport display, and over there we can select whatever we want. So for instance, we can select Suzanne, and we'll have a little Suzanne monkey head over there as our control. Okay. We can also here select wireframe if it was an object that has geometry on it. Ideally we don't want a Suzanne, so what I tend to do is I make like default one, so I'll have like a circle, and then you can link all the circle controls to that object, or a pair of rings, or whatever it is, which tends to work easily enough. And again, here is, I mean, this is mostly personal preference. Okay, so if we go and make a mesh circle, if we just link that directly, just to see what that does, you can go into pose mode and go there. Oh, the one thing that I also do is just name these. So I won't just leave a circle, I'll use the prefix of a widget, so WGT, and say big circle. We'll have a small circle as well, big, small, big circle. There we go. And then over here, go and link that. Okay, so in the bone tab, under viewport display, we can now go and just type in WGT, all of those. Those are from the previous rig because I copy and pasted the mesh. But we'll then have that. Okay, and what that will do is exactly what we wanted, surprisingly enough. From there, I always do that first, okay, and then I'll go and edit this object further based on what I want. So if I want it smaller or bigger or move it away, so sometimes, like potentially you may want it to be at a different place to where the bone center is, okay, particularly for like rotation controls in the jaw. So then what you do is then in edit mode you'd go and say, okay, I think I want it to move further away or up or down or whatever. Okay. So then we have that instead of the bone. Okay. We can do the same for the others quickly as well. So that one we can go WGT. See, I have a small circle. I don't know if it is much smaller or not. Not really. But that's fine. And then this one we can also just link a circle to. Okay. Okay. So that way it's just a little bit neater than what we had. Okay, so to actually go about linking the shapes. Okay, so here, this is what I did just now as well. I'm just going to go through it now again and a little bit, now that you can see what it is. Okay, so first of all, I go and find my shape that I want to link. So that would be browse that one, I believe. Okay, these are the drivers because I copied and pasted it from the other one. Okay, so that driver over there, I deleted the one that was there just so we can set it up again. Okay, so I'd go and find my shape and I'd put my shape on full. Okay, then I would go into pose mode of my rig, select that control and position that where I want it to be when that control is on full as well. Okay, so there. Okay, and now what I've done there is I've moved that 0.017898 in the local y direction. Okay, so you can see there the y location is active. Okay, the local y is then in that direction. Okay, so I'm actually just going to copy that value. Okay, so just hover over it and copy it. Okay, then back to our object, right click on it and say add driver. Okay, this tab I don't tend to use it because it disappears, as I said. So, oh, sorry, let's make this bigger. Didn't realize that this is more small. Okay, better. Okay, so in this tab over here, okay, we go to our drivers panel, just that one. Okay, and you guys wouldn't, you know, let's just, can I delete them here? Ah, that's better. Okay, so let's just link it again, add driver. Okay, so that's what yours would look like. Okay, once we have that selected, we need to go into the object and actually find the value channel with a little colored icon, okay, and have that selected. So it's not on the body or the key, it's actually that we need. Okay, from there, press N to find that menu, okay, and go to drivers. Okay, so you see here, for instance, that is set to variable +1. That's what I mentioned just now. That should always, you know, it can just be variable. Just to be safe, let's leave it on variable. I think the +1, which I just realized now, because we set it on full and then added the driver, it added the driver on top of the value that was there, and that's why it was +1. Okay, so that makes sense. Okay, but if we just leave it at variable, we should be fine. Okay, then in object, we select the armature. In bone, we select the bone, which is then brow middle left. And location, we know it needs the Y location on the local space. Okay, you see that's still red there. To get rid of that red, if that's red, it's not going to work. You see it gives an error. So then we just click update dependencies. Okay. Then we go to the F curve. We find, if we just make this bigger quickly, press home to fill that to the view, select that key, okay? That key is the off key, that key is the on key, okay? And remember, at the value of 1, we need our driver's position to be that value that we copied and pasted. So if we just paste that over there, okay, it was 0.017, I think, anyway. So let's just write it, 0.017, enter, okay. Then we have that working. Okay, and that is it. So it linked, we add the driver, go into the driver tab, open the side menu, go into the drivers option or drivers tab over there, specify what object we need to link it to. So in the armature, the bone, the whichever parameter it is, always on local space. Then go into the F curve and change the position value or the rotation value or the scale value on the activated keyframe, okay, which would have the value of 1 for the shape and the frame value of the position. In this case, it's that. And that's it. Okay, it's that 700 times, and then you have your face reader. Okay. However, to make it work a little bit easier, what we want to also do, and it's best to do it immediately after you've linked the driver, because then that value, that 0.071, is still in your head. Okay, and what we want to do is add a constraint on this object, which means we can't move it further away from the actual body. If that makes sense. Anyway, so what we do is we go into the bone constraints tab with the bone selected, and we add a limit location constraint. Okay, so this basically says you can or can't do whatever to this object. Okay, and we only want to be able to move this object in the Y local space up and down. Okay, so that means that we can limit the locations on any other axes. So first of all, we need to set it to local space. Okay, and if we want to, we can limit the positions on the minimum and maximum values of the X and the Y, and what that would do is, where's my widget? Widget? Why can't I see my thingy? There we go. Okay, So because I've limited the x and the z to be zeros, I actually can't move it on the x or the z. Okay, which is great. However, what you probably have noticed is even though I'm pulling that over there, it's not moving on the screen, but the value over there is actually moving. Okay, so it's displaying it there, but the value is still moving, okay, which doesn't help us at all. Okay, we want that to not change at all. And to fix that, we need to activate that for transform tab or check block. And that would then mean that there is no other movement allowed. Okay, which is perfect. While we're I digress. Okay, then we need to go and set this up for the y. Okay, so the maximum that I want to be able to move it up is that same value that I typed into my driver, which is 0.017. Okay, and that is why it's best to do this directly after you've linked it, because then you still remember that number and you don't have to go back later and go into the driver and see what it is, and it becomes a nightmare. Okay, that way we can only move it up that much. Okay, which is great. Okay, the same thing, we'd probably move it a similar value down. I'm not going to link the down one. Let's just make the same for the minimum. Okay, so that way we can only do up or, sorry, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Oh, there we go, that did something. Okay, we can only move it up or down a certain amount. That's a lot. Okay, perfect. So there we can see that that is doing that. So you can see as it reaches that above 0 value, that shape starts activating. The control stays more or less where my shape is, and everything is perfect. Everyone happy? Pretty straightforward. Okay, the last thing with this control is we can also just hide the display of these other axes so it doesn't, you know, get in the way. So what we can do is we can lock those in this transform tab, and what that'll do is literally just turn off the visibility of those gizmos. We're never going to rotate it, so we can lock it as well, and we're never going to scale it. So even if you go into rotation mode, you don't see the option to rotate it, which makes it a little bit easier for the animator. Okay, so if you've set it up that there is something on the scale, for instance, you want the furrow of the brow to be linked to the scale of the control, then you would leave the whatever scale on. So you can see, okay, if I try and scale it, there is the option to scale it, and you know, it's just a little bit more info, which helps. So you hide the stuff that you can't do, and you leave the stuff on that you can do. Okay, so that's the process. Okay, as I said, for everything. Okay, I do want to show, as I said, linking just more than one thing. So let's do that quickly, and this is pretty straightforward. You can very easily copy and paste drivers. Okay, so if we go here and find our mouth corner shapes, which are all over here. Okay, so I have a left and right corner shape for each one. So I'll have one being this side and two being that side. For some reason, that makes more sense to me than having one be that side and two be this side. I don't know. Anyway, so we want to link the corner of this, all four corner shapes, to that one control. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one. So add driver. Okay, again, go into my driver tab. What is going on this thing? Damn hamster people. Drivers. Okay, so there we need to go and select the last one. What I always tend to do is just turn off everything so that only the one that I'm busy with is actually visible. Okay, let's make this a bit bigger. Okay, then driver. Okay, first of all, make sure that that's on variable plus 0 or just variable. Okay, let's go and specify the control. I don't actually know what it's called. Let's just see quickly. Let's just make sure it's named properly. Just say mouth corner dot left. Okay, back into this. Over there, armature, bone, mouth corner dot left. Okay. Here we're linking the up, okay, so that would also be a Y location, okay, so for all the bones, if you didn't rotate the bone when you were in edit mode, in pose mode, Y is up and down, okay, so be aware of that. Again, local space, to get rid of the red, we say update dependencies, okay, then we go back to the F curve, and now we didn't check what value we actually need to set that value on. feel like a fool. Anyway, so it should at this point just work. Okay, so if we go and move it and up, you can see it's activating there, but we need to move it like all the way up to there to make it actually do anything. But now, just what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my 3D cursor over there, so that's where the corner of the mouth is when it's up at its uppest. Okay, and then I'm going to reset the position of that and just drag it up to there. So that position I want it to be full. Okay. That is 0.037, so let's just make it 0.04 just for funsies, it makes it easier. Okay, so in that case, if we go here, F curve, fit the whole thing to there, select that point, which is the activated point, that must be 0.03. There you go. Okay, so that is then. That always happens. Be careful if you go back to your control. If you're in object mode, you're just going to move your rig. Okay. And what I just tend to do so that that doesn't happen is I lock the positions on all of these of the armature itself, so you can't move the armature. So if you try and do that, it's just going to laugh at you. Okay. So then you know you have to go into pose mode. Okay. So there, that is activating that position. Okay, which is great. Okay. Now we need to do the same thing for the others, okay? So let's just see what the position values are. So if we go and find the, let's do the down. Down is that one. So let's just reset the position of that. Move that down to there. Okay, that's minus 0.23-ish. Okay, 23. And then what I do is we can copy and paste these drivers. So since it's linked to the same control, it just saves us a little bit of time. So I can right click on it and say copy driver, go to my mouth down, turn that off and say paste driver, okay? Which then is going to mean that in my driver tab, this is set up correctly because I also want it linked to the Y position, okay? So I don't have to do anything there. So all I need to do is I just need to update that value to minus 0.023. Which makes this much quicker. Okay, there we go, there we go. Those two link to the same control. Okay, same thing for the out ones as well. So, well, the out and the in. So if we go and say the back, which is that one, pose mode, let's just reset that, and say this is going to be on the global X, okay, which I think is the actual X as well. I'm going to move it a little bit further just so there's a little bit more space. Okay, so 0.01. Okay, let's call it that. Okay, so same thing. I'm going to go and paste it over there. I still have it selected, so I can just say paste driver. And here now the only difference is I need to go and change the Y. So I don't want the up and down, I want the out. Okay, which is the X location. And then that value, as we said, is a positive 0.01. So now that works. Okay, and now you can see those three are working quite nicely together, and now we just need the in as well. Okay, so if I then copy that driver, and paste that on my in, I'm copying the back one because now that's already linked to the X, so I don't have to change anything. Let's just, before we do that, just see how far in this needs to go. Somewhere about there. I'm going to just move my control in edit mode for the forward. So that's minus 0.02, kind of. Okay, so then we go over here, turn it off, paste driver. Okay, go here, select it into there. It is still the X, so don't change anything there. I only need to change that value to minus 0.02. And there it is all linked. Okay, I do just want to check one thing before I say it's done. So those four are now very easily moving with that thing. Okay, we only really set up one control or one driver, copy and pasted all of them, just changed the value of that activated frame to the position that we wanted to be able to move. Okay, you see, so now is when you're like, I should have done my limit constraints as well immediately because now I don't know what those numbers are, and now finding out what they are is more tricky. Okay. The only other thing I do just want to check, which I actually forgot about a little bit, but I don't think it's such a, yeah, it's not actually doing it. Okay, these curves need to be linear. Okay, we can't have them, if they were Bezier, okay, literally we would move our control up on a linear way, but it would interpolate and would ease in and out, which is weird. And you see there is the option to set it to Bezier over there, but it's not actually on Bezier over here. Okay, so if you see on your drivers that these have curves on them and they're not just straight lines, then you just need to go and make sure and set this to linear. Note. Okay, the last one I quickly want to do is the eye. Okay, now the one thing that you know about eyeballs are they are round, believe it or not. Okay, and what we need to do is a lot of times, particularly the bigger the character's eyes are, the more of an issue this is if we have an open, okay, let me just, if I just do this, say now there is our eye, and there is our eyelid at the top, and there is our eyelid when it's all the way down, okay? So let's say that's the eyelid over there, and that's the eyelid over there. So that's open eyelid, that's closed eyelid, looking at it from the side. In the real world, this eyelid rotates and slides over that eyeball, okay? In the Blender world, if we have a shape there, and a shape, or that's our original mesh, and our shape key's over here, this is going to go straight down, okay, and we're going to have the thing over there going into that. So it's going to intersect that eyeball, okay. So to fix that, basically what we need to do is we have an extra shape in the middle, and we say before you go straight there, go halfway to a position where on the outer side of the eyelid, so go from there to there to there, okay. And even though that is still a linear movement, we tend not to notice the fact that it is, and that slides nicely. If you have a character with very big eyes, okay, which none of you do, then sometimes you do need to go and make 4 or 3 or whatever, so you have extra shapes to make that go all the way around, which is a bit annoying. Okay, anyway, so let's just quickly look at how to do that. First of all, to make that in-between shape, okay, because we need to make it, what I would do is go and find your, excuse me, your original upper lid down shape, okay, which is this lips upper lid down, that one, okay, and you set that to be on 0.5, okay, so we want a halfway shape, okay, and then you go and say create new shape from mix, okay, so this is going to include all of those, so everything should be on 0 when you do this. I'm not doing it, just be sure that you guys do. So we want to then say new shape from mix, okay, and then on this shape you guys will have an eyeball there as well. You go all the way down and make sure that you select it, which is now that one. You say upper half, whatever, you turn it on, okay, you select it, you have it on and selected, so if we go into edit mode we can actually work on it. It is doubling up because the original one is still on. There we go. Okay, so there is our halfway shape. Make sure everything else is off, only have that one on, and then you would literally go and edit this. So you'd go and select those points and just drag them out of it. Okay, so you have your eyeball there as well, obviously, but you make sure that that works. Okay, then you can link them. Okay, so I'm just going to link the whole shape. I'm not even going to do the upper one. So just let's see what that does. Okay, so this is a little bit more complicated, okay, and just to explain what it is that we're doing, I'm just going to draw this here as well. It seems to work. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have our, this is our mesh, okay, this is our halfway shape, and then our full shape is over there, right? So we want it to go from there to there to there, okay, but how we actually go about doing that is a little bit counterintuitive, and the fact that it actually works doesn't make sense to me, but we just need to accept it. Okay, so when we move our control, so say that's our control, when it's over here we want everything to be off. Okay, when this control is halfway over there we want this shape, okay, to be on, and this shape still to be off. Okay, and then when this control is all the way down we want this shape to be on, okay, but we need to turn this one off, otherwise it's going to have the full shape plus that, so it's going to go down there somewhere. Okay, so there we want this shape then to be off. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to have sorry, lost my chain of thought. Okay, so from the beginning, off, off. In the middle, this one is on, and this one is off. And then at the bottom, let me just do that as well. Okay, at the very bottom, we have the middle shape off and the bottom shape on. That makes sense, right? Okay, so if we now think about what this curve is going to do, okay, our normal curve looks like that, and we have an on and a off. So, okay, sorry, an off and an on. Okay, so that is at 1, that is at 1, and we turn our shape on. Okay, in this case, it's going to be a little bit different just because we're first of all moving backwards. Okay, because we're pulling it down, it's going to be a negative value over there instead of a positive value. Okay, so we're actually going to have a slope that looks like that. So we're going to have because we're pulling it down, it goes to -1, which is on this side of the graph. So we have a negative slope. Okay, so if we just want to make sure that you guys understand why this happens. I'm not just going to show you what to do. Okay, so in the normal world, we would have had an on at 1. Okay, let's say the values are 1 just to make this easier. Okay, so here, where this is at 1, at 0, 0.5, and 1. Okay, the thing now is that we need to turn shapes, particularly for this middle one. Okay, at 0, it's on 0. Okay, at 0.5, which is over here, it's at 1. Okay, so it's going to look like that. But then, for the first time, when it goes to 1, it needs to go back off. So we're going to have actually 3 keys instead of just 2. Because we need to, with one slider, turn it on and off again. So the slider is going to go to halfway, the shape's going to go full, slider's going to go all the way off, and it's going to go back up again. So if we move that on, it's going to go on, off, okay, which is very important. So that point over there is 0.5, where our shape is on, and then that point it is at 1, and the shape is off. Okay, for this shape, which is on full, okay, again, as we said, at 0, it is on 0. Okay, can I change the color of this thing? I don't know. So it's on 0. At halfway, where this shape is on, this is still off. Okay, so this is going to go from there to there. So we still have a straight line. And then at 1, it's going to be on. So it's going to be that. Okay, so we're going to have 2 graphs. Does this make sense? Okay, so it'll make more sense now when we actually go and do it. So we're going, and this is how you would link anything where we have more than one shape doing a particular thing. Okay, so the mid-half shape curve is going to be 0, and then go to on, and then go to off. The full shape is going to be 0, and then go to still be 0, and then go to on. Okay, so that is the kind of curve that we're going to have. It's going to look like that. So those slopes are going to be the same. It'll go off and then go on. Okay, so let's do it quickly. Okay, so first of all, we need to know where this controls closed. Okay, so we're going to pose mode. Select that, pose mode. Okay, it's pose mode. Let's just get the value of, obviously on 0 it's on 0, and then let's say over there, so minus, let's just make it minus 0.1. Okay, minus 0.1. Okay, so this is how we set it up. Go here, let's go find our shapes. So the upper lid, let's do the half first. That'll be easiest. Okay, upper lid half. Okay, so it's that shape over there that we're linking. Okay, and it's minus 0.1. Okay, so add driver, go into our driver tab, let's just hide that quickly. Okay, drivers. Okay, armature. Oh, sorry, this is still the previous one. We need to select the latest one, so I like to turn those off. Okay, so over here, variable plus 0 is fine. Armature, and then this is, I don't think I called it anything. let's just go and name it quickly. Top lid, upper lid, lid dot left. Okay, so in there, back to the driver itself, over here, armature, bone, upper lid, and again it's the Y location on local space. So that you guys are comfortable with. To get rid of the red, click the update dependencies button. Okay, then we're going to the F curve. Okay, now since we're working with such small values, okay, the first thing is that we know that this is happening twice. Okay, sometimes in here there's like some snapping on that nearest frame. We're working with 0.01 values, okay, which is then like 10% of a frame, so it's going to snap to a whole frame, which we don't want. So I'm just going to turn that to no auto snap. Okay, no auto snap, which will make this a little bit easier. Okay. So first of all, let's just set that to be the full value of minus 0.01. Okay. So that is our curve. Okay. And remember what we said over here. Okay. So it's going to go from 0, it's going to be at 0. When it's on full, which is the frame value of sorry. If it was at 0.01, that is the all the way down position, okay? And we don't actually want that. We want the halfway down position, okay? Which is then half of that, okay? So that would then be that, okay? So 0.005, enter. And it broke. Just go 5. Okay, there we go. So that is now our halfway frame. Okay, so the frame is the position where it's halfway down, it's at minus 0.005, and then we want a second frame to be on full and on 0. Okay, and to do that, what you can do is select that key, but be careful because sometimes it, like by moving it, it would snap if this wasn't on, and you'd lose it because it would snap to 0. Okay, but you can select that and duplicate it. So I just duplicate it and move it somewhere away. And that I know needs to be a minus 0.01, and the value there needs to be at 0 again. Okay, so there is that curve that we just made there. Okay, so let's see what that's actually doing. So if we go and select this, go into pose mode, okay, if we pull that down, it's going to go until that shape is full, and then it's going to turn off. Okay, so that's exactly what we wanted to do. Okay, remember, that's perfect. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy and paste this driver. So upper half, I'm going to copy driver. And then I'm going to paste that on my the full one, which is upper lid down, which is that one. Okay, so I'm going to paste that. Okay, select it over here. Now it has the same curve, the same properties over here. So all I need to do is just update these values so that our graph is doing this, what we want it to. Okay, so again, remember at 0, our shape needs to be at 0, so that's fine. At the halfway point, it needs to be still be on 0. Okay, so that means that key over there needs to be on. Sorry, the value needs to be on 0. So the position is still the same. The control is still at minus 0.005. Now it's only the value which is on 0. Okay, and then where our control is all the way down, which is the frame value of minus 0.01. This value needs to be full. Okay, remember it's now that position over there that we're making. So I'm going to select, I'm just going to hide that one for now. Wait, I broke something. Changed the wrong graph. Okay, it's this one that I need to edit, not that one. Okay, so there, as I was saying, that one needs to still be on off. Okay, and that one needs to then be on. So if you look at those two, that is exactly what we had planned out. And if we look at it over here, pose mode, it's going to go full screen. Doesn't want a full screen, I'm sorry. Okay, so if we look at this like this, not that, damn it, that. Okay, so we pull that down. Okay, it goes to minus 0.05. Okay, where the halfway shape is full, the full shape is off, and if we keep pulling, it works like a bomb. Okay, so you don't notice it, but it is now going very much around my character's eye instead. So you can see there it does have a very linear movement from there to there, but you shouldn't really notice it on that kind of link. Okay, did that go in at all? Somewhat. Okay. At least there's nodding. Even if you're lying, I have proof that you said it made sense. Say again? Oh. So because this character is like neutral pose, because I modeled him with like halfway eyes, that is his open eye. Okay, his upper eyelid then goes up from there. Okay. Cool. That's linking drivers. That's pretty much it. Okay. Did you finish your class?
Which one?
The face reading.
Yeah.
Good. I'm like an hour and 45 minutes in, and I've only done like a third of what I wanted to do. Okay.
Mine's much simpler.
I haven't even done. I've just done modulating.
Yeah, but I haven't done any. I didn't do custom controls. That's becomes later.
Okay.
I didn't spend much time actually modeling the shapes.
Cool. The next thing that I quickly need to show you is adding in extra controls that are part of our face rig that aren't like actual deformation controls. So for instance, the jawbone that we need to add, and then also quickly looking at the eye rig. The eye rig's pretty straightforward. Let's do that first. Okay. So if I quickly go and let's just copy those, copy objects, bring those in, new thing. Okay, so that should, no, there we go. Okay. Oh great, didn't bring the whole rig as well. Okay, so if we, for the eye rig, okay, the eye rig is pretty straightforward. It's just a couple bones that we just need to be able to make the eyes rotate wherever we want our control to move. Okay, so for instance, that we can position that and the character looks at it, and also then the eyelids follow with a little bit as well. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so there are individual lookouts for the individual eyes as well. So if you have character going crazy, I don't know why both eyelids are moving there, but never mind about that. It's just a weight pending issue, hopefully. Okay, cool. So to do this, it's a very, very simple system, and I think even it's like quite a depreciated way of doing it. You could probably do it with a more up-to-date constraint, but this works. Okay, so it works and it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, first of all, we need to find the center point of our eyeball itself, because obviously it needs to rotate, and it rotates from the center of it. So, and that generally I find, depending on, most eyes would have been a sphere at some point in its life, and would also have a center like edge loop. So I do it on there. Okay, so select the center edge loop, shift select, cursor to selected, and then we take it from there. Okay, so select your armature, go into edit mode, and I tend to do this in the side view. Okay, let me just turn off all of these things. Okay, so we're in edit mode. Let's just also turn on transparency so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so the first thing that I do is make a new bone. Okay, scale it down, and then that, again, all of these things, everyone will probably show you how to make the eye rig differently. Okay, it's very, as I said, rigging is very subjective. Anyway, so that I then have as the root bone for my left eyeballs rig itself. Okay, so I'm going to call that I dot root dot left. Okay, from there, and I leave it upright. Okay, I would then duplicate that one and then rotate it to 90 degrees, okay, which is ideally looking straight out of your character's eyeball. Okay, that I then call I main dot left. Okay. Okay. I'll do all the parenting stuff. Well, let's parent now. That I parent to the root of my iRig. Okay, so control parent keep offset. Okay, so don't want it connected, just want it parented. Okay. Then I duplicate that and scale it down a little bit, and then that is my eye follow. So that is literally the bone that allows the eyelids to follow with. Okay. Duplicate that and slide it up in global space, and this is the part that I think you don't actually need anymore, but just to be safe. This is a pole target or up vector, so you can just call it pole, and that basically prevents your eye from rotating this way and falling over, which tends to happen if you don't have that. However, there are new constraints which looks like you don't need it anymore, but just to be safe, let's keep it. Then I will duplicate it again and move it forward in the world space, and that is for the character to look at, so I'm just going to keep it close enough for now. So that would then be a look at dot left, and those are all you need for that eye itself. Okay, this I'm going to leave parented for now. Ideally, when you guys are done, you can then set up constraints that change the parent of your look at control to like the chest or the hips or something, so that if your character's head moves, he stays looking in the same place, which is kind of important. Okay, so let's set up all of this. So I do the one side of the eye, set up all the constraints and everything, and then symmetrize it, because then the constraints go with, so then you don't have to build it twice. Okay, and this is a very simple system. Only the other thing I still want to do is just parent the root bone of this to the root of my actual root. Okay, keep offset. All of the controls actually should be parented to that. So the other ones that we made, I don't think I did, but they should be parented to that. Okay. Now, to set this up, basically what we need is two constraints. Okay, in pose mode, we set constraints in pose mode. Also, let me just set this so that I can actually see. Okay, so the first constraint is the actual what makes it work. Okay, and this you can use a multiple, well, different things. You can use, for instance, a damped track, which if you hover over it, will say exactly what it does. It says points to a target by performing the smallest rotation necessary. So that will point to the look at control. However, that performing the smallest rotation necessary is what's scary, because that means it can still rotate, and if it's looking at you and it rotates and suddenly the eyelid starts rotating, it's going to be scary. So even though it doesn't sound like the right thing to use, you actually can use an IK constraint. Okay, so if you set the IK constraint, we need that to be, the target is what it's looking at, and the pole target is the thing keeping its rotation correct. Okay, so the target, say armature. The bone we want to be the look at control, so if we say look, okay, then it's going to break. And the reason why it breaks is we need to set the chain length to 1, okay, which will fix it, okay. And now if you do this, you'll see it actually, let's just set the pivot to the medium point. So if we move this, it will actually already start working. Okay. However, there's a few things that we just need to adjust, and the best way to do it is by turning on the axes over there, so we can actually see the axes of these bones. Okay. So when we set that up, okay, there is. Sorry. Let's link the pole target first. Armature. There we go. Pole angle. Pole, which is that one. And you'll see as soon as we set that, the original rotation of this bone, okay, so the look at bone is this one in the front, okay, it turned, it rotated like that when we set the pole target, okay, which is fine. We just need it to rotate back, okay, and that we can do by setting this control over there, so we just set that to minus 90 degrees, which will then put it in the same position that it was. So ideally, if we turn this on and off, there shouldn't be any rotation happening on the bone. Okay, very important. Okay, and that's it. So that would mean that our thing's doing exactly what we want it to do. Okay, which is great. We can now already go select your eyeball itself, and I then parent that to the main eye bone. Okay, so select that, pose mode. Okay, then shift select the bone itself, Control P, set parent to bone. Okay, and that should just work. Okay, so now let's see if we turn that off and select that control and wiggle it. Yeah, our eye is doing exactly what we want it to do. Okay, anyway, the next step is then setting up the follow of it. So let's go back over here. Now that bone in the middle, we basically want that to move, do the same rotation as what the eye is doing, but at a much less value. So we don't want the eyes lids to literally move with it. We want it to look like it's just being affected by the rotation of it. Okay, so to do that, we want to set a constraint on that bone to copy the rotation of this bone at a percentage. Okay, and the easiest way to do that is select that bone, shift select the one you want. Okay, so select the one you want to constrain from, and then the active bone, which is the one we want to apply the constraint to. The shortcut to apply a constraint is Shift Control C, and then you can say copy rotation. Okay, so that there, we see it's on the eye follow bone, copying the rotation, and everything's now set up. Okay, so it's linked to the right target and the right bone. We can just change this from local space to local space, I think is important. Just make sure that those x-axes point in the same direction, and then we can set this to be a percentage, so say 0.25, whatever. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so there, if we go and wiggle that, you can see that bone on the inside is doing the same thing, but just much less. Okay, then to make that actually work, all that we need to do is two things. Okay, since it is now weight painting that we need, it would be part of a deformation, which works with an armature modifier, okay, which you already kind of have. So if you go and connect this to your body rig, then since the body rig armature modifier is looking at the body rig, once you join them, it will look at this as well, okay, and then this will work. And what it is then creating an extra vertex group with that follow bone's name. So if we go into there, let's just look for it and copy its name. I'm not sure if that did anything, but let's find out. Make a new vertex group on it, so say new vertex group. Yeah, it didn't, but we can just call it whatever that was. So that was, I think, i.follow.left. Okay, and then what I do is I literally go and select my eyelid and the points that I want and just assign it entirely to that. Okay, now what that would do is if we had a, oh, we do have an armature modifier on there, and select that, move it, you'll see that those lids are moving with it a little bit, which is fantastic. Okay, then what we need to do is symmetrize it, so go back into edit mode, select all the bones of the eye rig. Okay, so select the root, the main bone, the follow bone, the pole vector, and the look at, and you say armature symmetrize. That would then do the same thing on the other side, with the bonus of the constraints already being set up, so don't have to do it twice. It should also maintain the same parent relationship, so that will also be parented to that. The only thing we then need to do is create a vertex group for the side. Okay. However, if you painted it, it would have made one, which we didn't, so we just have to make another vertex group for the lid there. We also then need to go and parent this eyeball onto that bone, which I think is that one. And then the last thing, like I have over here, is I have a separate control that moves both of the eye look at controls. So just in here, I would duplicate one of those, clear its parent, okay, set it to the center of the scene, so just the head and the tail on the X, do that, and then parent both of those to it. Control P, keep offset. that way, we have an eye rig. Okay, so that's pretty quick. That's not too hectic. So if we do that, you can see both are looking at it, and the eyelids would follow if that one had a weight grip. Okay, having said that, the exact same thing applies for the jawbone. Okay, so the jawbone generally, the rotation point of your jaw, I normally put more or less around the bottom of the earlobes. Okay, it's something that you can play with. So some people put it higher, some people put it lower. I tend to put it more or less behind the mouth, below the earlobes, somewhere over there. Okay, so if I go and add a bone over there in edit mode, all we need to do is add a bone and then place its control or its tail. Is that the tail? The head. I think that's the head. More or less on the chin. Okay. Make sure it's in the middle of the scene as well. Again, so make. Why is those already on 0? That's not on 0. Ah, there we go. On 0. Okay. That bone we would also then parent to the deformation head bone. Okay, in your rig. Okay, which I don't have over here since there isn't a body rig on this character. And then we need to literally just call it deformation jaw and then create a vertex group on our character called the same thing, and then that'll work. Okay, when you guys weight paint that, okay, I think I'm just going to call it jawbone because my vertex group is called jawbone. That should then already make a difference. Okay, so you can see there it will have some effect. Okay. And then you really just need to go and weight paint that to make it work. So you weight paint everything on the bottom lip and then have it fade out towards the top. So you can see over here, mine doesn't work because I had extra controls that were weight painted. So the lips weren't actually weight painted to the jaw, they were weight painted to controls parented to the jaw, so that's why it's not working there. As same for over there, because I don't have a head bone. But that is the general idea. That's all we have time for today. But that is pretty much it. And as I said, just knowing that and being able to apply that, you can then go and make dudes a stuff. Like
$3 right now for a pickled buffalo tongue. Give $3 right now for a pickled buffalo tongue. Give $3 right now for a pickled buffalo tongue.
It's always good when you are rigging something to test it while you're doing it, honestly. Otherwise, you will never know if it works or not. Okay, so then you need to go and link all your shapes. You need to go and make controls for everything that you need a shape for. For instance, the rolling of the lips and all of that. So I've got those, I've got these, the jaw is a bone. If you have a nostril kind of control, if you have cheek controls, all of those things, and then you're done. It is a slow process. It is really, it can take forever, and you can also make it take forever by never stopping. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm sure there are lots of questions, but any questions? He's asleep. He's asleep. Alex is always asleep. You guys seem to be awake. Just put a blanket on them. No one's woken. Put a blanket over them and just leave them. Huh? Anyway, go make face rigs.